Hello and welcome to Course Like Your Car Brochure channel, and in today's episode, the Peugeot 505. Hello and welcome back, and if you're new to Course Like, we're a car brochure channel here on YouTube, looking at car brochures from around the world for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s and occasionally beyond that as well. So if you're interested in cars and car brochures, certainly please consider subscribing. It really does help the channel. Anyway, today's episode, yes, it's the wonderful Peugeot 505. So without further ado, let's have a look at that brochure. So here is today's brochure. And the first thing I have to note is I'm never a huge fan of the darker brochures. They do show a few little marks, a few little creases, and they have lots of reflections on camera. Now, inside the brochure isn't like that, so don't worry, it's just the outside of the brochure. But overall, a few signs of wear, but not too bad, as it's a UK brochure from 1980. Now, we're not only going to be showing this particular brochure. The Peugeot 505 ran from 78 to 1992 in France, although there were other countries that produced these as well. But this is only showing saloons because it predates the estates. I think the estates came a couple of years later. Now, this second brochure is a French brochure. It's obviously showing the estate, so we can have a bit of a look at the estate, or station wagon if you prefer it. But this is a very unusual one. These particular ones were four-wheel driving. You can certainly see the raised suspension. These were converted by a company called Dangel. So we'll come back to that one in a moment. But like I say, we're mainly concentrating on this UK brochure, and a bit of design going on there. Peugeot 505 and a bit of a silhouette type image of a 505. But if we turn the brochure round to the other side, yes, the theme does continue, so maybe we'll open it out in a minute. But if we zoom in, we do get a bit of a dealer stamp. It looks like RT Ward, Southlands Service Centre, Milford. So there we go. We do have a stamp, and at the side there, the kind of Peugeot theme, or Peugeot slogan at the time, world famous for strength. This is a UK brochure, of course, and there is the date 1980, so it's a pretty early one actually. And there is the Peugeot fully opened out, so yeah, pretty early one, this one, 1980. The 505 ran from 78 to 92, but the right hand drive UK ones didn't arrive till I think October 79, so it's only one of the earlier brochures for the Peugeot 505. Anyway, like I say, bit dark, bit gloomy the front cover, so let's open it up and see if we can find some nicer images. And first page, we are indeed greeted with a far nicer image. Really nice picture this. It opens up to a full side-on shot of this early 505. And interestingly, unlike other brochures which always seem to promote, the top model, because you aspired to have the top model, and obviously the company wanted you to buy the top model because it was more expensive. This is actually the base model at the time, the GR. The GR was the most basic trim level and also the most basic engine, in that this was a carburetor model rather than an injection, or indeed diesels were offered as well. But this was kind of like your starting point for the 505. You can always recognise the more basic 505s from this period because they didn't have sort of a running strip down the side. I think that's the easiest way to quickly recognise them. So, you weren't too worried about your car getting dented in a supermarket car park. But anyway, let's open the brochure up a little bit further because it introduces the rest of the range. And we open up and it gives you the different models. It describes these as 6 answers to newfound pleasure of driving. Like I say, starting off at the top there with the GR, so that's where we should start as well. The top one is that base model, a GR, and I've also shown the picture there of the next model up, the SR. And you can see a couple of little things that are different about them. The main thing is that sort of rubbing strip going along the doors there and towards the rear, which the base model didn't have. You can almost see that, you know, it's got a nicer seat as well, but we'll look at that in a moment. Now, the differences between the two. So that base model's 5 seats, 4-cylinder engine, 1971cc engine, 4 forward speeds and a reverse option for an automatic transmission. Disc brakes at front, power assisted steering, servo assisted brakes, independent suspension, 102 miles per hour top speed. So that's your GR. The one down, like I say, is the SR, one model up. Still a carburetor model, but it says the same mechanical specifications as the GR, but with even more luxurious equipment, comprising tweed upholstery, tinted glass, electrically operated sunroof and front windows, rev counter and side body protection strips. Let's continue up the range, and then we move up the range, and you'll be forgiven for thinking I've just shown the same picture again, but we have gone up the range now. The top one of the two is the TI, basically the GR but with fuel injection, and the one below it is the STI, basically the SR with fuel injection and a few extra niceties. But let's have a look at the text. So the TI's 5 seats, 4-cylinder engine, overhead camshaft. Now it's got a Bosch K Jetronic injection system, 1995cc. It's got 4 forward speeds and reverse, optional auto gearbox, all-round disc brakes now though, power assisted steering, servo assisted braking, independent suspension and a rev counter. So the main difference is it's got fuel injection, but it's got a few little extras over the GR as well, even though it looks the same from the outside. We could move up to the STI though. Again, fuel injection, same mechanical specifications as the TI, except now we've got a 5-speed gearbox as well, and tweed upholstery, tinted glass, electrically operated sunroof and front windows, and side body protection strips. Now we can get a top speed of 109 miles per hour. And then the next two, which again looks like I'm just showing you the same picture each time, but I'm not. The top one is the GRD, the lower one is the SRD. So 2 diesels effectively, the lower spec diesel and the higher spec diesel. So the GRD, it's 5 seats, 4-cylinder engine, 2304cc. We've just got 4 gears now, and we've just got disc brakes at the front, power assisted steering, servo assisted braking, independent suspension. Now quite a low top speed of only 88 miles per hour. And the SRD, which has the same mechanical specifications as the GRD, but with even more luxurious equipment, so tweed upholstery, tinted glass, electrically operated sunroof, front windows and side body protection strips. We turn the page and we're greeted with quite nice images of, again, that base model, that GR. Really it's kind of like lumping the GRD, the TI and the GR all together, as it's kind of like the lower trim levels in effect. But let's have a look at the text and we'll look at the pictures in a bit more detail. It says, with the 505, Peugeot presents a new model line in which each detail reflects elegance and efficiency. At first glance, the 505 firmly confirms its position as a grand touring car. The bonnet curves aerodynamically over the large halogen headlights, which can be adjusted from the driver's seat. The clean-cut design of the rear incorporates reversing lights and rear fog lights. The boot lid is fitted with a gas-filled strut to enable one-handed opening and enabling 18.4 cubic feet of luggage to be loaded easily onto the flat single-level floor. The exceptionally large glazed area incorporates a laminated windscreen and heated rear window, ensure optimum visibility at all times. So all the pictures are of that base GR. You can see those heated rear windows. We can see that very much a Peugeot 505 design headlight, which I really like how it curves like that. You instantly know it's a 505, and there's a little bit of a look at the rear lights and also how it's badged there, 505 GR. We have a look at that glove box, which looks huge, doesn't it, by today's standards. Modern cars don't seem to have much room for glove boxes anymore. And a look at that very practical saloon. And like I say, later on you could get those estates, which were massive cars. I always remember seeing those in the 80s and think they're absolutely huge, but I don't know, I've not seen one for a long time, so I don't know how big they look towards modern vehicles, but they were big cars back then and certainly very practical vehicles. Then we get this rather nice picture, and they're really nice pictures actually in this brochure. I always think early brochures have nicer images in them. This is obviously showing the full dash. Very plain, very simple, but very practical. I'm sure it's pretty hard wearing on these 505s. Again, rather nicely, it's showing us the base GR, so effectively the cheapest 505 you could get. And then we have a look at those instruments. Very simple, isn't it? Very plain, but somehow I don't mind it. I think it's quite nicely laid out. I quite like the simplicity of these base models, but then again, here on Course Light we very often champion base model cars and we really like them. After all, they were kind of like the entry model into a new car for many people, so effectively they were the cars that we remember the most. And that interesting centre console, if I can just clear the camera up. Very shiny paper actually on this brochure, so the camera is struggling, but unusual, isn't it? That little clock in the centre there, and the very simple controls. And then if we move to one side, of course, we get that huge glove box. But overall, a very nice big car, simple laid out controls, and like I say, I could quite happily live with this. And then, we turn the page, we continue the story with these less luxurious models, the GR, GRD and TI. We'll have a look at those seats because they look quite nice for a lower spec model. I think they look really quite nice. I mean, the cloth seats, which I'd be more than happy with, they look very comfortable in a way that French cars always do. So, head restraints, you don't feel like you're in a base model. And then you have a little bit of look at those manual door mirrors, windscreen wiper lever, looks like headlights leveling if you put more weight, or you're of course towing, and a little bit of look at the gear lever and all those sorts of blanking switches by the looks of it. Finally, for these lower spec models, we get a bit of a front end look at this GR version. But of course, if you wanted to, you could have the higher spec models, and I don't blame you. The higher spec models are the SR, the SRD and the STI. Your carburetted model, your diesel model and your injection model, but with a bit of a plusher interior. And I liked how Peugeot did this, really. I mean, if you wanted a carburetor, or if you wanted an injection, or if you wanted a diesel particularly, you didn't have to compromise with trim levels. I think it was a clever idea for Peugeot, and I'm sure it helped on the production line as well. But anyway, let's have a look at some of the text. So it says the finish of the SR, STI and SRD model means that the creature comforts of home go with you. Here the key word is harmony. Harmony of tweed, which gives the seats and door trim the rich warmth of a sitting room. Harmony of tone that blends the colours of the passenger space and the bodywork. The comfort of living and driving is enhanced by tinted windows, power steering, electrically operated front windows. Within the range of the 6 505 models, there are several options to allow you to personalise your 505. See the table-headed equipment at the end of the brochure. We'll certainly come to that later, but let's have a look at the images. So we start off looking at the seats. Yeah, tweed. They're possibly a little bit more hard wearing, but it doesn't particularly make me particularly want this higher model. We do get a standard rev counter though. And then instead of all those blanking switches, it looks like we get electric windows, electric sunroof switches by the looks of it. And there indeed is that sunshine roof. The models shown here are all the higher spec fuel injection version, the STI. The next page obviously shows you, you've got engine choices to have here, starting with the petrol. So yes, these are obviously the petrol engine, you've got your carburetor and your injection engine with that K Jetronic fuel injection system. So it tells us the 4-cylinder inline carburetor engine is the evidence of Peugeot's vast experience. Type XN1, cast iron block and aluminium cylinder head, having chambers with offset hemispherical domes, side camshaft, 5-bearing forged crankshaft, twin choke carburetor, a thermostatic cooling fan and electromagnetic control, diagnostic socket. The injection engine, so it says on both TI and STI models, adds the K Jetronic electronic injection, and on the STI the asset of a 5-speed manual gearbox. On both the TI and STI, automatic transmission can also be specified. And of course that diesel engine. The diesel is part of Peugeot's tradition with its assets of economy, flexibility and longevity. Type XD2, cast iron block with aluminium cylinder head with swirl chambers, side camshaft, 5-bearing forged crankshaft, mechanical injection pump, thermostatic cooling fan with electromagnetic control. And there is the diesel. We turn the page over, we get a little bit of image about safety and front impact zones, etc. But more importantly, when we turn to the other side, we get all the specifications and equipment, etc. So let's have a look at that. So I'm not going to spend too much on this because we've still got that unusual 4x4 version to have a look at next, but gives you a little bit of information about body dimensions, fuel tank towing capacities and weight. But if we move down, it gives you the information about the gearboxes, 4-speed synchromesh, and of course we've got that 5-speed synchromesh as well as the ZF automatic. A bit of information about the suspension, all round independent suspension. Brakes, front disc, rear drums on the lower spec, but all round discs on the higher spec versions. Rack and pinion steering, tyres, wheel stored under the boot and the electronic system. Further information about the engines, the carburetor, the diesel injection and the petrol Jetronic petrol injection, and the speeds which we've already looked at. Look at the fuel economy figures, and of course if you was worried about fuel economy, obviously the diesel was the one to consider. The main advantage with the diesel was in the simulated urban driving, so taxis. And then the equipment, which I'll probably quickly go through, but we have gone through this already, so I don't want to spend too much time at this, but it might be interesting to see what options you could get. So it lays it out as such: base model, the first column, and going all the way up to the STI version, which is at the top there. But like I say, we've really kind of read through the brochure and seen a lot of this already, but you can see a lot of the equipment that all models have got as well, which is nice to see. That's all standard equipment, the black dot, which continues. And like I said, most things on here are standard equipment on all the models, but of course there is extra bits and pieces, and of course all the fuel injection options. 5-speed manual can be had on some models, but if we go to the options, the white dots right at the very end, automatic gearbox can be had on the GR, the SR and the STI. Oh, and also the TI by the looks of it as well. Metallic finish option on them all, and if you did pick that absolute top of the range STI, you can also option it to have leather upholstery plus metallic finish and an automatic transmission. all on one option by looks of it. So I would imagine very rare to see one of these 505s in 1980 with the leather interior. But I also wanted to show this brochure in this episode as well, because it shows it as an estate form, but also this very unusual model. This was for the French market. I don't know if it was sold outside of France as well, but this is certainly a French brochure converted by Dangel automobiles, which you can just see at the bottom there. I might zoom in a moment. These unusual four-wheel drive versions of the estate, both as brake, which is, you know, your typical estate, or the familial, which, you know, family estate, which is 8 passenger, which is an unusual option. Let's just zoom in a bit more. And these apparently made quite good off-road machines. I mean, you look at the size of the wheels that they put on there, are actually huge. And I always thought the 505s were a little bit higher up anyway, but that's right up there, isn't it? It looks like a little bit of a struggle actually to get in there. Almost makes me think of a like forerunner SUVs today, but this particular thing is obviously going to be way better off-road. And I always think the 505 was a very rugged vehicle anyway. If you see it in Africa, etc., it always looks like a very tough vehicle, almost like a perfect vehicle to convert it into this 4x4 version. And of course the estates were very often used as taxis, and that familial version with the 8 seats would have been good at that as well. But I've never actually seen one of these in person, but it looks a very formidable vehicle. This is the company that converted this, Automobiles Dangel. But let's open the brochure up and look at some more images. Now this wasn't even just one spec, because like I say, you can have it as a standard estate or that 8-seater estate, but you can have the different trim levels as well, like your lower spec ones and your higher spec ones, like we looked at the brochure. So this comes as a GL or GLD or a GR or GRD. So higher spec, lower spec, petrol or diesel. The choice was even there. But let's look at some of the images. So some pretty interesting little images showing that suspension. It's out in some, looks like a stream. On safari there even. I don't remember these as like safari rally cars. And here it is in France. And you really get an idea of how high they are when you see that sort of wheelbarrow. Very unusual. And there again we can see that sort of suspension travel. Interestingly, they didn't just change the height and make it into a 4-wheel drive. They also put short gear ratios on there as well, so it would have been pretty good off-road. I always think of the 505, of course, being sort of Peugeot's last rear-wheel drive car, but there we go. We can get it as a 4-wheel drive as well. And it looks like they even produced some kind of like high-top version, which is interesting. You can almost make it into some kind of like proper safari-type vehicle. Very, very interesting. And then the specifications on the back of these unique vehicles. Okay, so zooming on them specifications, it's all in French, so I'm not going to read it to you. I don't speak French, but so if we just zoom in there, a couple of engine choices: 1971cc or a 2498cc, which I'm assuming is the diesel. Gives you information about the transmission as well, and like I say, all different ratios, which would make it quite a formidable off-road vehicle. Then we've got some information there in about, you know, suspension, etc., and the dimensions, but think very big. We get performance figures there as well in kilometers per hour. So the petrol's 150 kilometers an hour, the diesel 135 kilometers per hour. And then right at the bottom there, a little bit of a French address there for Dangel, which is the company who converts these to these very interesting, very new, unique 4-wheel drive off-road machines of the 505. So there we go, the Peugeot 505, whether you're getting the run-of-the-mill saloon or these quite amazing four-wheel drive estates. A really amazing car overall, a long-lived car, a really rugged, strong car. A car that was always known for being very good at going over rough terrain, and I think that's why you saw them in places like Africa, as well as running around doing your school run. But thank you so much for watching today. And if you remember the 505, please do jot it in the comments. I always love reading those. And of course, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching today. I've just added a couple more videos that are coming up now that I've done in the past, which of course you can click on those if you've got time and watch those as well. I've also put the big little circle up there, which is how you subscribe if you've not done so already. But overall, thank you so much for watching this full episode. Of course, like today, many more episodes coming up in the near future. So take care and goodbye.